All right, we are back with the Newstrength Way podcast, and today I've got Coach Claire joining me, talking all things running, and we've got a few things on the cards to cover through, but you guys should probably all know it first. Claire is the woman responsible for training me for this marathon upcoming, and Nath as well, so she's the one that's given us all the tips, probably trying to help, and the topic of today is the mistakes most people make in the running scene, and she's probably trying to stop me from making all these same ones because I know that I'm victim to probably all five.
All five. Ooh.
At times. Not anymore though. Not anymore. Now, thanks to Claire. So I'm dialed in. Thank you to Claire. Otherwise, I would just be sending every run and hoping for the best and probably broken and at the physio going to see Bev. So first up, welcome Claire. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. How exciting. First one.
First one.
Yeah.
Second guest. Jess has made the first guest.
That's okay.
Second guest.
I'm fine to be second to Jess.
Yeah. So, Claire, just give us a quick little intro. Obviously, you've been around the running world for quite some time now, both from a runner yourself and then also in the professional setting with what you do down in Sydney with your other business. Mm-hmm. Do you want to give us the Claire story?
Oh, I'll give you the Claire story in as little time as possible. So, yes, I have been a running coach for recreational runners for about 14 years now. Started down in Sydney, my own business. Shout out to North Shore Running and Outdoor Fitness. I kind of fell into that because some of my clients at the time wanted to do a half marathon and I had already done a couple of half marathons. So we got a group together and that just went from there. So that was my natural progression into running coaching, but I had a really strong strength background for my runners as well. So that'll come up in our conversation, I'm sure, really big on strength training for runners for performance and injury prevention. A lot of the runners that I see both in Newcastle and Sydney are our weekend warriors. They've got their 9 to 5. They just want to do really well for themselves, but they're managing the juggle of work, life, family, and that type of thing.
What's going on there? There we go. We're back. 100%. And I do have a question on that. Was Justin already a runner when you met him or did you convert him?
Okay. So Justin had done some running, but he did do his first marathon a year after we met. He joined the running group quite quickly after we met. So he was, but he wasn't taking it as seriously as he does now.
Yeah. Shout out to Justin. Just hit a 80K.
80K. Yeah.
Oh, incredible.
Smashed it.
Yeah, and he's in for Mudgee too, right? So
marathon.
Yeah, the marathon. So I'm just going to be watching hopefully I'm still watching his heels and he's still in range.
Yeah, I think you guys would probably, he hasn't actually done the road marathon since that because then we had kids very shortly after that. So I think you guys would be able to run together for quite a bit.
Oh, that's nice. I'll have somebody to push me along until he just dusts me in the back end, I'd say. Let's get into it. So we've identified 5 key mistakes that you see a lot of runners make when either they're trying to get back into it or just maybe mismanaging their programming, in a way of maybe training how they feel as opposed to what's going to be the best for the results they want to get. Let's dive into them. So the first one, and this is me through and through, is going too hard too often and falling into that middle zone trap or the dreaded zone 3 that everyone despises.
The grey zone.
The grey zone. Yeah. Let's talk about that. This is for me, this is where I started when we started this running journey last year. It was like, all right, cool. Well, if I'm going to run, I'm just going to try to run the distance as fast as I can. Yeah. And the next time I do it, I'll just try to run it faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to preface this answer with I'm here talking about wanting to improve your endurance and your running for a particular event or distance. If you're just running as part of your hybrid training and you don't have a goal, it's just general fitness, then yeah, sure, running between different training zones is probably not an issue for you. But if you are trying to, like Jake, run a marathon, which takes very targeted heart rate training, then we do see this quite a bit. So you might have heard of the grey zone. The grey zone is where you are training in the middle zone. Generally, it's around zone 3. So it's when your low intensity efforts are too hard and you let your heart rate creep above that magic zone 2 into more of like tempo zone, and you're trying to hold that for a really long amount of time. When you finish that effort, whether it be 45 minutes, an hour, 3 hours. What's your longest run so far?
Yeah, three and some change.
Yeah,
just to make it 30.
Just over 3.
I don't do well with this, like just run
on duration based.
Still haven't come around to it.
So you're finishing that shaky, hungry, like exhausted. A lot of people will get a headache from their heart rate being up so high. And then on the program, you look at the program, you might do your long run on a Saturday or Sunday, and come early in the week, you got to hit your intervals, but you're probably not actually fully recovered from that long run because you did it so high. So then in your interval training, you're not able to get your heart rate up high enough. And so you're now falling back into zone 3 again. And then you go to hit your tempo run on your easy runs. And because you're just not recovering in between, you end up in the same zone for all of your training. Like I said, general population who are just running for fitness, probably not a big deal. But what you're missing out on is lots of different physiological benefits that you get from each training zone. So you'd get different benefits from a zone 2 effort than you do from a VO2 max, like a zone 4-5 effort. I don't know how deep you want me to dive into
we can touch
physiology.
On it if you like it, but I would just add to that though, like you said, it probably doesn't matter for the everyday runner. I actually would argue it probably matters a little bit more for the everyday person who might be trying to do some work in the gym. Like they might still be trying to get stronger, they might still be trying to get fitter, because I feel like what I found when I was in that space was it trashed me for the next couple of days when I was to go back in the gym.
From a recovery point of view.
And to try to deadlift and be able to put those numbers up. And I think it's just as important to then, like if you're running for an aerobic benefit, maybe you should make it run in a means that would actually get the aerobic benefit rather than getting it to then take away from your strength training as well. Because if it's taken away from your strength training, there's the same sort of concept of where it impacts your actual getting to your high VO2 max pieces. If it's not getting the response in your strength pieces when you're trying to do your strength training, it's the same thing. You're going to lose the impact of what you're trying to do. And
True.
I know a lot of people don't necessarily train for the physiological benefit, but for the mental benefit and their mental health. But I think one of the battles that I had in that stage there was I couldn't do the things that I used to be able to do because I was trashing myself on both ends.
True. Yeah.
And then that would drive me into being like, well, why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. And I think what I was getting wrong in that process was just approaching it wrong.
Correct. And I think you're right. Like I think I probably had a bit of tunnel vision there just thinking about runners. But for your heavy lifters as well, we know that a cardio base is really important because you see a lot of heavy lifters kind of blowing in between sets, and not having that aerobic base is going to hold them back as well. And without correct recovery, then technique falls apart, tension falls apart. So you're going to see, some pretty poor lifting techniques as well. Yeah.
So how do we fix this? What's the right way? What would be a good balanced way to go about this?
So understanding your training zones is the first step. So there are 5 training zones. There's a million different models, polarized methods, 3-zone models, 5-zone models, and we could talk all day on heart rate models. But in general, if you're running with a heart rate watch, then it's going to give you some general zones. But if you're not, you can absolutely do this by feel. So we use the talk test a lot. So on your long run efforts, if you are meant to be training in a low intensity endurance session, you should be able to talk. Some people say you should be able to sing the alphabet while you're running. If you're meant to be doing an interval session, there's absolutely no way you can talk. That's a VO2 max session where you're trying to push your aerobic capacity. At the end of those efforts, which are usually quite small, you can't talk. You are just breathing in and trying to recover. And then in those kind of in-between, so I will say the grey zone is not discarded. We do train in the grey zone, but in that kind of, I call that the huffy puffy. So if I was running next to you for a tempo run or a threshold run where we're trying to push a lactate threshold and I asked you a question, you'd be able to answer me, but you'd have to catch your breath for a minute afterwards. So you can still talk, but you can't have a conversation. Talk test is easily the easiest way. RPE, and then it kind of goes up from there. Heart rate training, understanding your VO2 max is probably the gold standard, and getting your lactate threshold to understand your training zones. But certainly if you're just starting out, just talk test.
Yeah, talk test I think is a great way to go about it. And I think like we just had our run crew on the weekend, and that was one of the things I wasn't really tracking and checking when I did my 10K with Cody, but we were chatting the whole time. And then at the end I looked and I was like, oh look, we actually ran at a reasonable pace, but we stayed in the right heart rate zones for what we're after in that there. And I come back from that and I was like, I feel really good right now. So I think it was an easy way to monitor it there without actually physically monitoring every little detail, and probably something that I think is valuable for a lot of people to do as well. Like I think we can nearly get caught up too much in the technology now. And like I've probably looked at my Garmin and my Strava too many times, and I'm a very recreational runner. A
very recreational runner, yes, but running a marathon is no mean feat. Not everyone. Well, I do think everyone can put down their handbag and run a marathon. I've told Nath that. It's just how you pull up.
What's your current call on that? This will come out before the marathon. So what's your prediction?
On Nath doing it?
Yeah, just a lot.
I think Nath and his knee is going to be very lucky to do it. Nath, I love how you say I'm training him. He's just piggybacking off your program and doing one run a week. So I don't know if I want to put my name on his program. I think he'll be able to do it. I just don't think he'll pull up well if he pushes his he's got ITB syndrome. So he pushes that. But he's mentally tough. So I think he'll be able to complete it.
Yeah, so he'll get the job done, but we might not see him back in the gym for a week afterwards.
Yeah. Might be driving him home.
All right, let's hit on to mistake number 2. So this kind of feeds off the back end of it. It's like skipping over the aerobic base. Once again, victim or guilty of here, being that I like intervals. Like I go back to I used to love playing footy. I loved fitness at footy and it was all interval based. It was 200s, 400s, coat hangers, etc. Why is that maybe the wrong way to go about things? And then what's the best way for us to look at?
Okay. Again, I think it depends on your goal with running. But in general, we know that if we take it from a performance point of view and then just a general health and longevity, having that aerobic base is going to give you better longevity for those physiological adaptations that you get from that. But the other thing you get from spending time in that base phase, you call it in programming, or the aerobic base, is you're also increasing the tissue capacity. So your ligaments, your tendons, maybe this is where Nath went a little bit wrong. But spending more time there, you're increasing, the activation of some of those stabilizing muscles and stuff like that as well. So if you don't have the tissue capacity to handle the load and then you're just going and thrashing yourself on intervals all the time, then you're at higher chance of injury. It will also depend too on your background as well. So if you're coming into a season where you want to take on an endurance event and you are generally fit because you cycle and you've done your aerobic base there, then maybe it is okay to get a bit more targeted. But yeah, you're missing out on all the physiological adaptations. It's going to give you the base of your higher intensity programming. I think you have to earn your higher intensity program.
I like it. Do you have a volume landmark or like a amount of time per week you'd like to see people accumulate? I know obviously that's going to depend on what their goal is to get towards, but is there like a general base of like, okay, cool, this is going to be sufficient as a maybe out of competition or out of prep as to how much time you'd like somebody to spend in there if you're prepping them knowing that they're going to try to go to do a half marathon, a marathon or so on in the future?
In terms of the base phase? Like
how much time would they spend, say, a week on
So you probably heard of the 80-20 rule. So that's where you have 80% in your low intensity aerobic and 20% in your higher intensity efforts. I do believe in the 80-20 rule. Everything is in all training. It's all individual depending on what else is other training they're doing. But the important thing to understand too with your aerobic base is it doesn't all have to be running. So you could do your aerobic base work on ergs, you could do it swimming, cycling, and do some cross training to reduce your chance of injury as well. But yeah, I believe in the 80-20 rule. So 80% of total duration. I work on duration and intensity, so duration times heart rate for most of my recreational athletes, as opposed to kilometres and pacing for the majority of their program. So yeah, 80% of duration in those lower zones in their base phase.
Yeah, and would that tailor down a little bit as you get towards, say, a competition phase, particularly if you're going, say, in a shorter distance or where, like, it's not about the marathon, it's probably more about their ability there? What would it sort of look like there? So
for example, your program, so you'll have 3 phases usually, or 4 phases if we include a taper. So you'll have a base phase where it's dominated by the lower intensity running, and it takes a lot of mental resilience, especially if you're used to just going fast all the time. You come from a footy background to be able to do those lower intensity runs. That base phase will be, definitely your 80-20. We still want that higher intensity stuff. We don't want to ignore it, but you're not going to get the most benefit if you have too much of that. In the build phase, that's where you start increasing the intensity a lot more. So you might have, 70-30 mix or something like that. And then you'll have a peak phase. And in the peak phase, I do start working to kilometres and pace because that's where we're trying to prep for the event. And that peak phase is only about 2 weeks. So a peak phase is not very long. whereas a base phase might be 6 to 12 weeks, depending on where someone's starting point is. And then you taper, 2-week taper. In the taper, the intensity remains the same. I think there's many ways to do a taper. My philosophy is intensity stays the same for your low and high intensity efforts, but we just cut the volume and then you race.
Yes, it won't be too far off. That's actually great that you touched on that. That's actually pretty similar to how we approach energy system training with the boxing guys that we work with as well. So in that same model of like we're going to be a little bit more aerobic dominant further out. Like obviously they do a lot more general conditioning work in their sport and stuff like that as well. But when we do look at like strict zone 2, depending on the size of the guy as well, like our bigger boxers will look towards like say 2 hours as their milestone when they're sort of building from there, and it might taper down to like 60 to 90 minutes a week when they're in camp, and it's more of a restorative session for them. And then the same goes for like the lighter weight guys, might be looking towards 3 hours in that out of camp, and then once they're in camp, because their other training volume picks up, it tapers down to that 90 minutes to 2 hours a week there. So pretty cool to see that model's the same across endurance sports into
well, you nailed it on the head though. It's in training and energy system. So like the sport doesn't, of course you get sport specificity in the types of training you're doing, but if you're trying to enhance your aerobic capacity, your endurance, your lactate threshold, it's just energy systems.
Well-developed energy systems just allows you to take on whatever it is that you want there. Like that's a big part of what we do in the gym as well. Like overall, like we're looking to build a base, whether that's from a strength and structural balance wise, but as well as that energy system wise, so that then whatever that next little milestone that you decide for yourself that you can take on becomes, then you know that you've already built the base and you can specialize from that pretty quickly, and you don't have to completely take 6 months to rebuild to then go, okay, cool, I can run a marathon now. If you've built a nice base there, you can go, okay, we can just tailor it a little bit and then we can build our way towards there. And you're not going to be a world record holder, but you're probably going to get more stuff done, and you'll be able to achieve some pretty cool stuff in your lifetime being able to have that nice solid base first.
100%, especially when people start jumping between sports too.
Yes, I'm jumping from strongman to marathon running.
I've seen you boxing as well.
Yeah, that's just for fun. That's social time. That's good. I will not be jumping into any actual boxing fights. Sparring's enough, and then I just generally just get beaten up.
Yeah, fair.
Let's jump into number 3. So one of the things that I think we see a lot of people get stuck with is not separating the impact of like your life stress along with training stress, or rather they are separating them instead of integrating it, knowing that like if you've got deadlines at work, if you've got the kids aren't sleeping, those things are going to actually impact on your training. And then how we prioritize recovery, how that sort of works into it has to be looked at to be able to get the most out of your training there. And I think that's one of the things with running, because it is like, oh, I did 5Ks this week, I'll go to 6, I'll go to 7. Like you just think that you can go linearly working your way up, but then at some point something's going to break if you're not actually looking after those things. And what's your take on recovery?
Recovery is a session in itself. So if we talk of one of our favorite clients, Paula, Paula has just nailed the process, and she came in with very little strength base, and we spent 8 weeks building up her strength, and now she's running 10Ks on the weekend. We spent her whole session on Monday just doing mobility, and she feels a lot better for it. So recovery is a session in itself, and I think you're really that really resonated with me, talking about life stresses and your ability to push through some of these sessions with the accumulated stress and fatigue just from everyday life. So while we see, I talk about heart rates, and we've got to be hitting this intensity for that session. Well, what else happened that day though? You're on 4 hours sleep, your resting heart rate, and maybe your HRV, your heart rate variability if you're monitoring that, and your resting lactate levels as well. So lactate is a substrate in, without getting too in depth to it, in our body that can be stimulated, yes, by running and exercise, but it's also an immune response. So if you're carrying a cough or a cold, you're going to have increased lactate. And if you're starting off with increased lactate, it's just going to feel harder. You're going to get puffed out easier. That's why I love the talk test, because on one day, if you're going to pace rather than intensity, you're trying to hit 6 minutes a K, but your lactate, you're tired, you didn't recover quite well because you bunched all your sessions together at the start of the week or the end of the week because you didn't get them all done. And so you're coming off a really fatigued base, then it's going to feel a lot harder. And that's where your technique starts to change and you start running a bit differently because you're a bit tired, and then things start to niggle. So you start running differently again and you get lower and you're running economy, and so you're using more energy. And it's just this negative snowball. And I think if you just sat back and recognized, well, I went to bed at midnight because I had that deadline, the kids are up throughout the night, I'm just going to take this as a recovery day, could make a really big difference to your results and your performance.
And I think one of the things that I'd say is training is something that you can actually control in that there. You can't control when your kid's going to have a blow up or a tantrum.
Yeah, I love that. Yep.
But then you can choose and go, okay, cool. I was meant to run 3 hours on the weekend again. Yep. And I messaged you first thing in the morning. I was like, I'm pretty sure I got a head cold. I'm not feeling great. Should I not do the session? Do you want me to just tough it out? I'll go out there and do it, or what do you reckon? And you just said, come and just do a 10K is easy. And then I actually felt better for it. I got home from that and I was like, oh, I feel amazing out of just doing some light work and just at a nice pace, versus if I'd gone and slugged it out, I probably would have felt like shit. If I stayed at home and just didn't do anything, I probably would have felt like shit as well. So I think there's definitely a sweet spot there that's on that side of things. And I don't think it's maybe the trendy way on recovery now, and I won't rant on this too much, but the trendy push on the recovery now is I need to do an ice bath or a sauna session. And it does have a part of the puzzle in terms of a wellness standpoint. It's not necessary, but it's definitely some icing on the cake in some things. And whether that's the cold water immersion, whether that's the heat exposure, there's some benefits to your body there, but it's not going to fix it's not going to fix a shitty training plan.
Yeah.
It's not going to fix not being able to sleep or not treating yourself well from a nutrition standpoint. If you've got those negative habits, then no amount of recovery can fix that there.
Yeah. And I think this is coming up next too. If you are just not following a program, and you're thinking, or you're following a program that you've downloaded, off the internet, which is totally fine, but you're not actually sitting back and zooming out and having a look at the whole periodization and planning, then I wouldn't blame you for getting up and thinking, oh man, I've got 3.5 hours today. If I miss this, I'm now a week behind, and next week I've got to do 2 long runs. And then you're just putting yourself further and further back, because you have a very big immune response to endurance training as well. So that's why I said to you, don't do it today. You're not going to get the fitness, and you're not going to get the recovery that you need to kick the illness as well. And controlling the controllables, which you're right, is your program.
And I think probably the last thing to wrap that up, when you're looking at all those little things, is I guess from a recovery standpoint, a lot of people I see they miss a day, so they try to condense things in.
Yes, they try and catch up on it.
They're trying to catch up for your bad habits, or I ate like shit for the last couple of days, so I need to out-train that now.
Yeah.
But then that just facilitates the same thing, because obviously when you then eat like shit, you want to overcome that, you train more. What happens? Your body in that condensed period goes, I'm churning through a lot of energy. I need to eat more. So you get hungry for that same sort of stuff again, and you're just facilitating the same loops. And ultimately, you're not able to out-train your brain on those things, or outwork your brain on those things. You're going to come back to what your body naturally needs. And at the end of the day, the first thing was probably you just needed a rest day or an easy day or something in that sense.
Yeah. And I would say if you're feeling itchy about that, I can't rest, then use it, be intentional about it. There's plenty of mobility, activation exercises that you can do that's going to enhance your running, but makes you feel like you're doing something, and it's not going to increase your recovery needs either.
That's great. I think let's dive into number 4. And this is kind of still tying our way back in, but I remember when I used to play footy, I was always fit for where I was at. I might not have been endurance sports fit, but I was mostly one of the fittest guys in the team. So then when I went from there to then competing in strongman and strength sports, I was still generally one of the fittest guys on the competition floor, because I still done a little bit of the other stuff, but I definitely wasn't in the same fitness as what I was when I was playing footy there. But as soon as I went, all right, I'm going to start pushing the envelope on my conditioning again here, I expected myself to be back being able to do what I could do when I was playing footy, and 5K run, that's nothing. And then my legs would be trashed for a week. But my brain still went, well, you should still be able to do that sort of stuff. You're a fit person. You're a strong person. You should be able to do that. And I think this is one of the issues, is we can get caught up in our ego as to how we drive the program, and forgetting about where you are right now, and just want to rip right into it.
Yeah. And I think, I could talk about this all day. There's so many different categories of this too. So I see it a lot in people who've had kids, men and women, and I fell into this trap as well, the bounce back culture after having kids and wanting to just, Strava is the death of happiness, I think. kills running joy. And, you're seeing these other mums who, are pushing their triplets in a pram and hitting paces that you can only dream of when, before you had kids. I see it in, there's that saying mammal, 40, the middle-aged man in Lycra with the 40-year-old men taking up cycling when their kids are a little bit older.
Does Justin have Lycra?
Justin's not 40 yet.
Oh, yeah.
Good point. I won't let him out the door in Lycra. But I see it in that kind of age group where all of a sudden their kids are sleeping through, they have a bit more time, a bit more routine, and they want to go back to where they were before that period of time. Another time you see it is there's this period of time after school, so in the younger age, the youth, where, they might take up partying or their organised sport that just came part and parcel with school has finished, so they want to jump back into rugby and things like that. I see it in lots of different categories, and I think the comparison culture as well on social media and Strava has a lot to say for it.
Everyone's so fast on social media and Strava.
But they're only posting their fast stuff. They're hiding their low efforts. They're calling it an easy run when they're blowing at the end of it. Like it's no different to social media. They're uploading the photo before they ran, being like, "Oh, that was so hard." Like I don't think it's any different. And I think there's a few runners on there that I've followed before who are winning events, and they're happily posting their 6.5 minute Ks on their easy days, 7-minute Ks on their easy days. So yes, some of the mistakes I see when people are jumping straight back in, working in the wrong energy systems. We've talked on that. Not having any strength base. So some of the best athletes that I've seen and recreational runners that I've seen come back to the sport or any sport have spent a good amount of time in the gym, upping their tissue capacity in the gym where it's controlled. We can look at training all the different movement patterns and things like that. Whereas when they're just jumping straight into running without that strength base and aerobic base is when we see injuries, illness, burnout, and it ultimately makes them exit the sport again, which is really sad because I think if they've got the motivation to come back to the sport, if they were just nurtured a little bit better and shown, if someone sat down and showed them the journey and said, you just got to put time in here, I promise you, your reward is that you get to do those efforts and you get to enter that race, then I think they would have had a much more longevity in the sport.
I think that's hit it on the head. Like I actually had this morning one of the guys that we used to work with that's one of the professional boxers, but he's had a bit of a layoff. He's been living a lot of life. He's been focused. He's gone and bought a house. He's been renovating. He's doing all these things, and he's had that fire to come back, and he's excited to get back in the ring. And like we're in June now or July. We're actually July. We're in July today. So at the time we're recording, but he walked in the gym. We had a chat about like what he wants to do, and then I was like, "Are we getting back in the ring?" And he's like, "Yeah, but not until the end of the year."
Yeah,
and
I love
he knew from the starting point. He's like, "I know that like I've got the itch, I've got the fire, but I know that I've made a mistake on this before. I've gone, okay, cool, I want to fight again."
Yeah, and
signs a contract to fight then and there.
Yeah,
and the beauty is he's smart enough to know, okay, cool, I need to build a base, get a rhythm, make sure it's not like a pipe dream where it's like it's just excited about it because of the thought of it there. And if he still loves it when he gets into training and gets into the full swing of things before he goes all out on it again.
Yeah.
So I think that's it takes being pretty evolved as a
it's usually space. A lesson learnt rather than I would love to see someone come in with that wisdom before they've even made that mistake, but often it's coming off the back of trying that the first time around. I have seen it. I've had a few clients that do it that way, but most of the time it's like I've tried that before and it didn't work.
Yeah, and we're all victim of it or guilty of it. Yeah, I guess you're guilty and a victim at times on that one there, but I know that that's definitely me of like going back and being like, all right, well, let's put 200 kilo on the bar and deadlift and we'll see how many reps I can get there. I've done 12 or something like that there before. I'll see what I can get. And I get like 2.
Yeah.
And then I'm trashed for the next couple of days. I'm like, oh, what's going on? It's like, well, I haven't been doing it for a start.
Yeah.
There. So I can't expect that, but I always do. And I think it's probably.
So if you could like rewind and talk to that Jacob now with the wisdom you have now and you were coming back into it again because you've gone through, even though you didn't birthed the children, you've gone through that journey and you're still in it as well with young kids, what would your advice be?
Oh, look, like I'm probably a little bit different on this than most people. Like my advice, if I was telling somebody else, like even if it's not like when it's a previous version of me, I'm like, oh, you probably just need to learn those things because you're going to get more value from the mistakes that you can help other people with as well. And I don't like, you've got to have a few of the battle scars of it to then be able to do the things that you want to be able to do. So I feel like I'm still willing to make those mistakes. You're going to screw it up, but maybe this is that I still haven't learned. So I think in that case there, like, I'm like, no, I'm happy with the mistakes that I've made because it's all been part of the learning journey and I wouldn't be where I am without them.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't be able to help other people with them without them. If I was telling a client that's walked in that was in a similar position, as I do in many occasions, like, look, here's the mistakes that I made. Here's how we're going to avoid them for you. Is we're going to just build a base again. We're going to go back and we're going to reset. And it's not about beating your all-time personal best. We're going to pivot some things. And this is something that I am doing right now that's a little bit more intelligent. Is like, I'm not trying to chase down my best ever squat again. Like it might come eventually, but then I'm changing the context of it. So I've taken off my weightlifting shoes. I'm taking the belt off, the sleeves off, and I can chase down a PR that I know is very possible for me in the context of not having any of the supportive equipment there. And I know I can chase that down. And in doing that, I'm still doing something new that it's an achievement. So that's a way for me that I try to contextualize still winning and not feeling like you're still not where you were beforehand. So it's a new ground being made as opposed to going, all right, well, I'm going to try to beat that old thing that realistically right now I don't have the time investment to do so. And I definitely couldn't do it while also trying to run a marathon.
And run a business and
be
a dad.
Well, mostly just float around at the gym and distract people from doing any work. Yeah. Let's get into number 5. And we've kind of danced around this a little bit, and it really comes down to not going in with a plan. I think this is like the overarching thing for a lot of these pieces here, and not going in with a plan, not having an idea of how to progress your way through as you're working on your running or endurance in general, and just going, well, I think this is like hard today is good, and then I'll just go harder and I'll go harder. That's how I started. Well, I had a plan. My plan was just to run faster every week or run further every week.
Run further, yeah.
And it ultimately led to like busting myself up a few times and then having to take some time off. It worked a little bit. Like I did get faster, but if you could avoid that and actually do it in a sustainable approach, would be much more appropriate. And also like when you're looking at guys that have got kids or women that have got kids, like you can't be injured and out of action for your own stupidity for too long.
Yeah. I think this point actually wraps up the whole conversation we've been having, and not having an individualized plan. Like, yes, you can get a training plan anywhere these days, off social media, off the internet, but having one that's individualized to the other responsibilities that are in your life and correctly periodized and progress. It's similar to strength training. You've got to periodize your energy system training as well. What we see with that is exactly what you said. People will say, okay, I did 10Ks this week, so I know the 10% rule. That's where you can increase your run 10% the following week, so I'll do 11 and then I'll progress that. Oh, I'm running out of time. The event's 4 weeks away. Oh, I didn't really calculate that properly. I'll just chuck in a 20K now, and there's just no regard for progression. There's no deload weeks. There's no regard for the different energy systems that you need to build to be able to run faster, further, whatever your goal is. Because I also train with plenty of people who just want to do a fast 5K. The principles change a little bit, but not having that program means you're very zoomed into the week ahead of you, and you aren't going to have longevity in the sport. You're going to either burn out, or you're not going to get the distance, or you're just going to be feeling like trash with low energy most of the week. And that means, like you said, we can't afford, when you're a busy dad, mum, partner, business owner, worker, employee, whatever you've got going on in your life, you really can't afford to have low energy, low mood, and just burn out from the sport as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Like, I think having a really good, solid plan that's built around yourself, as you said, like, and that is going to be different for some people. Like, I've always jokingly said, I was like, oh, couch to 5K is you get off the couch and you go and run 5K. Because I've always known I've had the fitness to be able to do it. I've generally also suffered from it the next few days when my ankles are trashed, like when I used to run in Converses or Nanos or something like that. And having the right equipment probably helps as well if you are just jumping off the street and getting into running and you want to go, all right, cool, I'm going to run 5-10Ks, probably get some good shoes. Like it's well worth the investment.
Yes.
It took me a few weeks to come around to it because I always looked and I was like, $300 for a pair of running shoes is bullshit.
The free sport. The free sport that you get your $300 shoes and your $800 Garmin and then the heart rate strap and then this, that and the other.
Pay $500 to go to a marathon or something like that.
Entry fees. Yeah.
Mudgie's not that expensive.
Have you entered?
No, not yet.
Why?
I don't know.
You're going to miss out on the early bird deal.
Yeah, but I already paid for accommodation. So I'm committed. I just haven't paid the entry for the run yet. Worst case at this stage, I'm going and going to watch you guys do some.
Oh, no way. No way.
All right, so we're going to just quick fire a little bit of wrapping up on this. We went a little bit long from what we were aiming to, but that's all right. That's just because we were hitting in with some positive stuff there. So what I do want to hit you with is just some basics on like what you would do, like just quick answers there. So somebody's getting back into running. Maybe they don't feel like they can stay in that actual zone 2 by actually running. What do they do? Like
targeted power walking.
Power walking, yeah.
Power walking.
Weighted vests are great too. I used to like.
Rucking, Rucking's very popular now. Power walking, don't underestimate. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, but he has the walk run program and he advocates for, he's like 90 and he's still running and he advocates for just most of your program being walking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There you go.
In marathon training.
All right, next up, getting beaten up from running. What's your go-tos? Just in general, like and they're not doing any training outside of running, they're just running.
Getting beaten up, like in terms of
they're not fighting people while they're running. No, they're broken. Their joints are getting broken, and it keeps on being a recurring thing. But
strength training. Not every single day, but every single week. I love my runners to do 2 strength training days a week. Again, targeted for running. Unfortunately, heavy deads and powerlifting isn't always going to be the best combination with endurance running, but it's all about phases. So yeah, targeted strength training twice a week.
Let's dive in on that. What's the 3 most valuable exercises in the gym that runners should be doing?
That's so hard. Front foot elevated split squat, but with a knees over toes approach. So your back legs straight and you're going forwards and backwards. Anything on the glute meads, anything like your lateral band walks, your clam hip thrusts, the more glute meads the better, I say. And calves, calf raises, farmers walks on toes, isometric calf holds.
That's 5, but let's
No, that was 3 themes. That was 3 exercises spent lots of different ways.
Upper body training for runners.
Important because at the end of the event, what will happen is, your upper body provides rhythm, but if you start losing your endurance in your upper body, you start breaking at the hips and you see very low hips, and the hips are really important for energy transfer from the upper and lower body. So the ability to stay upright in your posture, really important for energy.
Also, you're going to get the photos from your run too. Yeah. So you want to have some sweet arms while you're at it too, right?
Yeah, got to have some pump.
Yeah, quick little pump on the side. Let's go last piece. What are most runners missing?
Individualization.
Yeah. Love it. Thanks so much, Claire, for coming on the podcast. We have a whole bunch of series along these run side of stuff that we're going to be shooting over the coming weeks, and then we'll be able to release with you guys. We'll probably put this alongside with a whole bunch of stories about Nathan and I trying to make our way over this marathon finish line, and Claire will be able to laugh and make jokes about us.
Nah, you'll do it. You'll do great.
What was your marathon time?
4:18.
4:18.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with it though because the longest run I did beforehand was 28 Ks. So I hit the wall at 28 Ks. And so I was doing very, very well up until, about 30 Ks I hit the wall. And so then there was a lot of walking for the last 12 Ks, which,
And you're doing 21?
I'm doing half, yeah.
Yeah. What's the call? What time are you getting?
I'd love to do a sub 2, but it's been a really long time since I haven't done this distance or on the road. I've been dabbling in trail running. So this is going to be my first road event in, very, very long time. But I'd love a sub 2.
So we got a couple of clients coming out as well as the whole team pretty much are going to be making their way out to Mudgee. Last question for this year, and you can't answer with the clients, and that's why I'm prefacing with that there. We've got Jess, Lily, and Strong Woman Bev all doing the 10K. I want you to give me the order that they finish in.
Oh, no, that's so unfair. fair. Okay, don't take any offense to this, girls. I've done some running with Jess recently, and I think she's got a really good she'll have a good lactate threshold from all her netball. I think that's going to pull her through. We'll see how we go. Can I answer after High Rocks? I reckon if Jess can, focus, I think she'll probably come in first. Lily and Bev. Oh, I'm going to say Lily because she's been putting in the time. She's been doing some 10K efforts recently.
Bev has been distracted from her cardio journey with going to Worlds in strongman.
So I think
not taking our Mudgee run seriously enough. Only just 100%. Trying to go to Worlds instead.
Yeah, I think Bev's Worlds is probably holding her back from getting the medal.
Good point. Good point to finish on. All right, that is us. Thank you so much for listening to the Newstrength Way podcast with our special guest, Coach Claire. We will see you guys next week.
See you then. Thanks.